Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light.
Right, lads and lassies, first of all, grab yourself a pint and pull up a chair, but most importantly, get ready to feast your eyes, because the man of the ratios is here, Donovan Dijak, my friend. It is a pleasure. Welcome to the Soul Sessions.
What's up, man? How are you? I can't drink, unfortunately. I'm in a car, but I would get arrested. But I'd love to join you for one later.
Hey, well, if you can.
Where are you located?
Scotland.
Scotland. I don't have anything in Scotland coming up. Like, how far of a drive is let's see, I'm going to Rev Pro on July 28th. Where's that? Coventry?
Coventry, yeah. So that's like about five hour.
5 hours. That's easy. Is 5 hours a long drive where you guys are from, or is that
no, mate, come on. We drive down south just for our wrestling. That's like 6 or 7 hours. That's how we
I drive to New York City, which is 5 hours away, just for just a visit for the day. So yeah, that's not. So yeah, maybe we'll see each other in Coventry.
Right. Drinks on me, mate. A wee little celebratory celebration for you. But Dijak, obviously, with every guest I've done, every guest has a story, but every story has a beginning. Dijak, I'd love to know, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
That would be 1998. So I'm 11 years old at that point. I'm kind of generally familiar with wrestling, just through video games or my friends talking about it or whatever it is. But my brother is about 3.5, 4 years older than me. So he's watching wrestling on television because he's at that age. If I'm 11, he's about 14 or 15. So he's at that age where the Attitude Era is like right in his wheelhouse in terms of what a 14 or 15-year-old boy is kind of looking for on television. And me as an 11-year-old, it's kind of above my pay grade, but I'm still very interested in what I'm seeing. So that's kind of how the genesis of my fandom began. And I became more and more of a fan the more I saw it all throughout 98, 99, 2000 through probably 2003, which is when I kind of started to hit my stride in high school. And high school sports, I should say, more specifically, because there was like practices and stuff like that. And the way that sports practices work here anyway, were that, it's mostly weekdays at night. So that was pretty much right when wrestling was always on. So I had to pick one or the other, and I picked sports at that point. So then for about, I guess, probably 7 years, I just stopped watching wrestling because I was too focused and fixated on practicing sports. But then I graduated from college, and pro sports was not in the cards for me. So I started working a full-time job as a criminal investigator. And because I had a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in criminal justice. So that's kind of where the genesis of this latest character that I portrayed had. And but while that was happening in my real life, I started watching, WWE again on television. And so I regrew my fandom back in 2010, 11, and 12. And then the end of 12 rolled around, and I found out that training for to become a professional wrestler was a realistic option. All the dots kind of connected and started to fall into place. And I found a school called the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. And that's actually where I'm going tonight to start my first day as a trainer at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. So that's going to be a fun full circle moment for me that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, the end of 2012 was the beginning of my training as a professional wrestler.
Well, hey, congratulations there on the training gig. I mean, you'll be passing on the knowledge of aviators and ratios to the next generation, so they'll be very lucky and blessed for that. But Dijak, something I'm very curious about, also, being here in the UK, and you see America, their love of sport, where it's, football, hockey, and all that. But I've always been fascinated with how wrestling fits into that. Is wrestling quite popular within like the American sports conscious?
Yes, but as like how would I describe it? Almost like for lack of a better term, like a meme, if that makes sense. Most people are generally aware. Well, everybody knows who The Rock is, right?
Yeah.
And almost everybody knows that he used to be a professional wrestler. So that's there, right? I don't know that a lot of those people have like seen him wrestle or anything like that. Maybe like clips or like the people's eyebrow or whatever. Like so generally it's aware amongst the subconscious of we'll say most Americans, certainly the ones who are invested in sports and pop culture and stuff like that. Right, like maybe like your grandmother who's sitting at home watching her soap operas is not familiar with with professional wrestling in the WWE. But most people, if you say like, oh, that's John Cena, or oh, that's The Undertaker, that's The Rock, they're generally aware of those things, even if they don't watch the program. Even Randy Orton's starting to enter that. He's probably at the top of the list for the current active roster, right? I mean, John Cena is still kind of active, but in terms of like a full-time active, it's probably Randy in terms of like pop culture crossover or sports culture crossover, because you say RKO and pretty much most people know who you're talking about and stuff like that, just because they've seen so many videos and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a crossover there, but I wouldn't say that it's like it's certainly not well respected or anything like that. I think for the most part, people view it as like kind of a silly goose. I don't want to go as far as to say joke, but like it's not taken very seriously amongst that crew. Obviously, there's a group, and it's a growing group, and it's a large group of people, because this is a multi-million-dollar industry we're talking about, that sells out massive arenas, right? So it's not a small group of people, but in terms of the the vast largeness of a sports culture, especially, and I'm sure it's the same way in most of the United Kingdom, just with different sports, right? So it's like the vast percentage of the population is composed of sports fans in some capacity, right? Like even my mom is a Patriots fan. Even people who don't, you could ask anybody on the street and they know who the Boston Celtics are in where I live. But in terms of wrestling, that's more of a select group of people who take it very seriously, which is great. But then for the most part, I don't want to assign percentages, but I'd say the majority of people are familiar with it, and maybe not in the best light, if that makes sense.
No, fair dues indeed. Obviously we Scots do love our sports, from golf and football, and we just like to laugh at the English with cricket and badminton, because they're not really sports in our eyes. They're just hobbies and activities on the side. But nonetheless, obviously, getting your start within the American wrestling scene, you do some great things. And obviously one promotion I really want to talk about, obviously, is Ring of Honor, which you had a time with and did a lot of great stuff with. And Ring of Honor as well, when I talk about a lot of it to wrestlers, that period of like the early 03s to the late 2010 eras of Ring of Honor were so influential. Nigel McGuinness, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and obviously Seth Rollins was there for a time. And just what Ring of Honor brought to the culture of American wrestling as well was so poignant. I wonder from yourself, Dijak, with Ring of Honor, where do you think its place sits in wrestling American history?
I would say that it's like probably the pinnacle of like that sort of underground culture, which is interesting because it started, it continues to trend away from that, right? The more it progresses, the more it starts to become a little bit more mainstream and a little bit more mainstream. Even when I was there, we started to transition out of pay-per-view, which I think was like a Jim Cornette, Adam Pearce type thing. And then it started to be more on regular pay-per-view and regular TV. And it was owned by Sinclair Broadcast Group, which is a major media conglomerate. And now it's owned by Tony and AEW. So it's even more prevalent. It's got more mainstream appeal. And you see it you see the Ring of Honor World Champion on pay-per-views and on mainstream pay-per-views and on mainstream network cable television. So yeah, it continues to trend in that direction. Back even before I started, it was this kind of underground sort of thing that you would almost hear about, but it'd be difficult to find, and you'd have to go find people who had either DVDs or tape trading or something like that to be able to figure out how to watch it and where to watch it and stuff like that. And it is funny that, a lot of the figureheads, both in the ring and behind the scenes, are still all in the business. I saw Gabe Sapolsky 3 weeks ago. He invented Ring of Honor. I was supposed to wrestle Joaquin Wilde. He drew the original Ring of Honor logo. CM Punk showed up and said hello to all of us in the NXT locker room. I shared a locker room with Seth Rollins, who you mentioned. Kevin Owens is there. There's just so many. I ran into Nigel McGuinness and Bryan Danielson backstage at AEW the other day. It was good to catch up with them. It's so all the guys you're mentioning are still in the business, and they're still prevalent figureheads in the business. So it's not like we're talking ages ago. Like, this is the something of yesteryear. I mean, these people obviously knew what they were doing. They obviously made an influential product, and it was at a time when that needed to happen, because that was the genesis of kind of, let's break out of this this indie mentality, and let's make a quote unquote super indie, which started to trend more and more towards what you're getting in modern day, which is reflected in AEW. But AEW is a big company at this point. So now you have this big company that's representative of the values of those Ring of Honor days back in the early and mid 2000s. And alongside with that, you're getting all these sub branches of different avenues of this sort of underground independent wrestling that kind of takes a big foothold. You have the GCWs and all these other places that are selling out these, not arenas or anything like that, but like these good sized venues, and they have big followings and people who invest in the time and the storylines and the wrestling and all that stuff. And it's a movement. It's great to see it continue to trend in that direction. It was trending hard in that direction when I left the indies, and it's even further now, and that's awesome. It's always awesome to see growth.
Hey, absolutely. Whenever wrestling companies are doing well worldwide, everyone's doing well. Wrestlers are getting paid, fans get to enjoy content. There may be tribalism, but at the end of the day, it is wrestling, and we all get to enjoy it, and we all get a good time out of it. Indeed.
There is a lot of tribalism that I'm experiencing firsthand right now that I did not realize was there, because, like, as someone who was literally in the middle of it, right? Like, I was on the NXT roster as AEW was created, and we were told in no uncertain terms that these guys are gunning for us, and they're trying to take our spot, and they're trying to take our time slot and stuff. And so it's like, okay, this is who I work for, right? And this is what they're telling me. And my coworkers are next to me, and these are my friends. Some of them are my best friends. So I need to outperform on their behalf. I need to make sure that everything, and even in some cases, we were being, whether it's a work or a shoot, but ultimately, who cares? It's like, if someone wants to create controversy online or whatever, then I'm happy to engage in that as well, because if it's a work, fine. If it's a shoot, fine. Like, it really doesn't make a difference as long as it gets people talking and it gets people invested in whatever things are happening in those respective companies. But I always felt obligated to defend my coworkers. Not that they needed defending per se, but just because these are the people that I'm with, and these are my friends, and I feel strongly about them. Ironically, most of those people are in AEW right now, and I went backstage there and I saw all of these people I'm talking about. I was like, oh, it's great to see you. It's great, it's wonderful to catch up. It's funny that we're over here now. It's very akin to someone who plays for a professional sports team moving to a different sports team, right? It's when you might not get these references, but to any of your American viewers, the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. I don't know what your version of that, of like a really intense rivalry is, but I'm sure there've been players who've jumped from one team to the other, whereas they were, gung-ho supporting their team at the time and their friends, they switch over to another team. And sometimes they don't care. Sometimes it's whoever's cashing me a check, I'm going to play my hardest, and that's what it is. Yeah. For me, it's not that. For me, it's I'm here. I owe you what I owe you, and I owe these people around me my best, and I owe them my loyalty, and that's what I'm going to give them. And that can change with location. So that's kind of what's happening now. So for me, that always made sense because it was like a big part of my life and my business. For fans, that's an interesting standpoint, just to plant your flag like that and to be just super fired up. It's fine. I don't hold it against them. I'm getting a lot of at first I thought I avoided it, right? Because I wrote this letter and I explained myself and I said, here's what happened, and I'm being as transparent as possible. And most people sort of rallied behind me. But now we're out of the honeymoon phase and we're like 5 days later, and I'm starting to really feel the people who are passionate about WWE, because they really want to believe in their soul that I deserve to get I wasn't fired, but I deserve to no longer work for WWE. Because if in their minds I no longer deserve to work for WWE, that makes WWE right and just, right? Because nobody wants to support the bad guy, right? And I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that this is the perception. Nobody wants to support the people who messed up or who made the mistake, the people who made the wrong choice. So if you're a big WWE fan, you love watching Monday Night Raw, it probably makes you feel a little bit better to think that I screwed up and I don't deserve to be there, and they made the right choice, because it's like, okay, good. Now I can go watch Raw in peace, right? Mm-hmm. Not to say that they wouldn't if they support me, right? There's plenty of people who support me and still watch Monday Night Raw. I still watch Monday Night Raw. I was tweeting about NXT last night. These are all still my friends. And even though I feel strongly about the way that I was treated, especially on the way out, I feel very passionately about that. And there's a great level of a disappointment in my life regarding that and whoever made those decisions. That being said, I'm not going to stop being friends with all of these people that I know and all these friends that I have. I'm not going to stop watching this show that I enjoy and this product that I think is very special, the same way I never stopped watching AEW or supporting my friends over there. If it became sort of a public controversial thing, yes, I'm never going to back down from a controversy or from an angle that I feel is coming after people that I respect and like, or myself, or anything like that. That being said, I always watched their product. I always enjoyed their product. WWE is just a place where you don't feel comfortable talking too much about AEW. That's just the bottom line, the way it is. And frankly, if I ever end up with AEW, I'll probably be in a position where it's probably not the most comfortable thing to talk about WWE. But I don't know that to be fact. I've never been someone in their locker room before, outside of last Sunday when I was just kind of, I never went in the locker room, right? I was just standing in the backstage area. I would never invade their locker room as someone who isn't on their roster. But I just respectfully, I was just standing in the back, just in the general vicinity. But yeah, I'm not inundated in their culture yet. I know the culture in WWE was probably not the best idea to be talking about AEW in any capacity unless you have like a significant other there or something, or extenuating circumstances. Like, nobody gave me any brushback when I was talking about my friend Jay Briscoe or my friend Brody Lee. There was plenty of crossover there. I thought AEW and Tony did tremendous jobs paying tributes to my friend, and I bought their t-shirts and I supported their families and I retweeted them, and there was never any brushback about that. That being said, I don't know that there would have been any brushback about anything because there was a handful of times where I kind of cautiously was like, Keith Lee's doing a great job, and I'm just like, but there's a part of you that's like, is this going to affect my booking? Is someone going to see this and be like, well, he's not a team player, something like that? Because they talk about that. They talk about team and family, and we're all in this together, and all that stuff. And then they don't renew your contract. So that's an interesting way to treat a team and family member. But listen, It could be for any reason. Someone could have told them to do it. It could have been a bureaucratic office mandate to do. I don't know. So I'm not going to hold it against anyone. There's no sour grapes. There is a level of disappointment, but there's no anger. That's just the way that I feel.
Hey, absolutely, Dijak, 100% there, my friend. And I do want to get into the letter because when I first saw it on social media, as a Scot, I nearly dropped my pint, which is like sacrilege for us. We can't even waste alcohol. That's like bad juju. But when I saw it and reading over it for myself, just utter shock and disbelief, because you had that stellar match at Stand and Deliver that was fucking amazing. And then just to see parts in the letter, you know, having that great match, getting drafted up to Raw, and then nothing happened. Like, it seems to be a common thing. Like, you got drafted, Baron Corbin got drafted, Odyssey Jones got drafted, Giovanni Vinci got drafted. And it seems to be the sort of thing that people are getting drafted with no long-term plans in store. So I want to get your thoughts, Dijak, obviously, on the draft. When you got drafted up, did you feel like this could be the big thing? Things are going on here. And then obviously the reaction of getting told nothing happening really, then obviously main event and getting that match on WWE Speed, which would be your last WWE match.
Yeah, I've been in WWE long enough, especially within the context of NXT to main roster transitions and back and forth. And quite frankly, I'm probably the foremost expert on all of it because I don't think anyone's gone up and down quite as much as I have. Certainly not in like an official capacity, right? Like I was, because they use guys for a little bit of stints, but like my stints on NXT were like, no, you're full time, like you're training. Every time I was in NXT, it wasn't like hey, let's do a 2 or 3 week program, or even like a 2 or 3 month program, like Dominic Mysterio, for example, who was in NXT and he was the North American champion. He was on 1 or 2 premium live events. No, mine was like a year and a half, and that was just the second one. My first one was 3 years. So so I've had big stints on both main roster and NXT. So I had a front row seat to how all of this goes down and what a lot of it means. And I had more than enough experience and just general knowledge to know that the supplemental draft is not a good sign, right? It's not the be all end all. It's not a quote unquote, this is overtaking my timeline right now. I did an interview for Fightful with Sean Ross Sapp, where I said that I found out I was on main event and it was a death sentence, right? Main event in and of its run. So this got clipped by Cultaholic. I'm going to call everybody out, right? If you clip me and you do a bad job doing it, I'm going to call you out. I'm going to be honest. So Cultaholic, you can clip this too. And make me look foolish or whatever thing you're going to do to try to make it so you're parsing my words. To clarify, the whole concept of what I was saying was in that scenario for me when I got that text under the knowledge that I'm who I am and I've been treated the way I've always been treated in this company. And I have this bounce up and down sort of track record, and my contract is up. I know when my contract's up. My contract's up in 4 weeks or 5 weeks or something like that. I know what I was told in terms of how long I'd be on NXT. I know what I know all of the factors. I know that I was in the supplemental draft. So taking all of that into account, when I was told that I would be on main event, that felt to me like a death sentence. And that's not to say that I was going to phone it in, or I gave up, or I'm a bad employee, or I went to someone and yelled at them and said, this is bullshit, you're screwing. I didn't do any of that. I'm just a human being with knowledge and feelings, and that's how I felt. And guess what? Those knowledge and feelings were correct. My career is dead in WWE. So I was right. It's not a silly proposition for me to have thought that. I ended up being correct. So for all the people who want to say I had a bad attitude, I never had a bad attitude. You're never going to find a quote from somebody in WWE who said I had a bad attitude. That doesn't exist. It'll never exist. Anyone who says it no one will say it because I'm not going to say nobody will say it because like, who knows what someone will say to curb the narrative in their direction. If they say it, it's untrue. I'll say that much. I never had a bad attitude about anything. I never complained about wins or losses. I never complained about booking. I never missed a booking. I never even had confrontational moments with people in the office or anything like that. It just didn't happen. It didn't exist. I was a model employee on all accounts. I did literally whatever I was told, and I never complained about it in any capacity. So if you're trying to paint me in that light, it's just wrong. It's factually wrong. But yeah, the draft itself, just long story short, when I was watching the draft happen, you know, I have this context in my mind of, okay, I've watched guys go up in the supplemental draft, and, you know, we can list the names right now. The Von Wagner, who else? Zion Quinn, you know, Odyssey Jones. These are guys who, let's call space spade, they would have been better staying in NXT, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that they used the draft. They, you know, the infamous they. Who's they? I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, creative is involved in some capacity, but it could be a combination of creative. There could be powers from above influencing. I don't know, right? I'm not involved in that process. But the mysterious, vague they, whoever it is, whoever's ultimately making these decisions and calling these shots, I think that they use the draft in two capacities. I think it's one to utilize the guys that they want to utilize. You know, you have your Carmelo Hayeses and your Ilya Dragunovs and the Braun Breakers, and they're getting drafted in high spots. It's on television. It accomplishes what it needs to. It makes them seem like stars, and it prepares them. It introduces them to the fan base, and it prepares them to be featured on television. Then you have your supplemental draft. I think that's basically where they draw the line and say, okay, now we got some guys who've basically overstayed their welcome in NXT, and we'll bring them up there in case we need them for anything. I think that's genuinely what the dichotomy between those two groups are. And that's not to say that it's impossible to break out of that group. Like, I can't name them, but I'm sure there've been supplemental draft picks who've main evented pay-per-views or whatever thing, because they're not saying just get rid of, because if they wanted to get rid of them, they just get rid of them, right? I think in my case it was probably just easier to do that than to because there was really no difference between at that point, because there's so little time left in my contract that if you had terminated my contract, I just would have gotten paid the exact same amount to do literally nothing. So it's probably just easier at that point to just call me up and have me do a couple nothing matches rather than waste television time on me, right? So I don't know that that's the thought process. Maybe there's a scenario. I mean, what I was hoping was that, you know, obviously I was hoping for the best, but like in my mind, worst case scenario was, oh, maybe they don't have anything for me, but they're bringing me up in case something doesn't work out and they need to fill a spot. So maybe that's what happened, and that spot just never opened up. I mean, that's kind of what I heard through the grapevine, right? Through, like, you know, the game of WWE telephone, where somebody was in a meeting that told somebody else, that told somebody else, that told somebody else, and then that word got back to me. Do I believe that happened? Yes, I believe that happened in an official capacity. But I believe in my heart that some of those minds had already been made up by the time that they relayed that information to the larger group. I think, and no, I can't say with any certainty, but the fact of the matter is when I sit down and I tangibly, logically think about it, and I put myself in that scenario, in a scenario where there's a room full of creative minds, and we all say, do we have anything for Dijak? Right? Like, almost everybody I know, including myself, can at least come up with, well, let's put him in the King of the Ring tournament and have him lose and see what happens, right? Like we can all, or the even easier than that would be like, oh, well, we have this this backstage segment where Drew is talking to Karrion Kross and Dijak floats in the background and looks at both of them because he has a history with both of them. And then he floats off the screen. Let's see if that gets a reaction. Because I was there. I could have done that. That wouldn't have required any extra real estate or any time. It literally just would have been like a, let's dip our toe in the water and see what happens, right? Because like, oh, we can't come up with anything creatively for him. Well, he's got this history, so let's try this. It changes nothing. It doesn't ruin the segment. It doesn't take away from Drew and Karrion Kross. I don't even know if Drew and Karrion Kross had a segment together. I don't even think they probably didn't because they're both bad guys. But you know, it's just the first thing that popped in my head. I'm sure there was a segment. The New Day and Karrion Kross have been feuding recently, right? Maybe they're still feuding. There was nothing stopping Dijak from being a silhouette in the background who peeks his head around a corner and disappears because I have history with the New Day, because I have history with Karrion Kross. And people would have been like, oh, why is he looking at them? Oh, blah, blah, and just see how it goes, right? That would have been the easiest thing in the world. The fact is that didn't happen, right? So it's difficult for me to accept that there was some meeting where everyone had an open mind and everyone was open to the idea of using me in some sort of creative capacity, and no one could come up with anything resembling an answer to the point where they just said, let's not renew his contract. That's a very, very, very difficult thing to accept. And so that's what leads me to believe that there were people whose minds had already been made up before that question was even posed.
It is a very hard pill to swallow as a fan hearing this, and I can't imagine for yourself as well, Dijak, going through this experience for yourself, because like I think a lot of fans felt as well, with obviously Triple H is leading creative now on the main roster, Shawn Michaels leading creative on NXT. Like this is a new fresh area. I think a lot of fans thought, oh, a lot of people are going to get called up. It's not going to be this NXT curse, the call-up curse that has happened in the past, and thought, this is new, this is fresh, things are going to be better for wrestlers now. Were you shocked that obviously that this so-called curse is still in effect?
I mean, honestly, I feel like they're doing a pretty good job with it outside of me. It's hard to be the outsider looking in and being like, wow, everything looks really good except me, you know. It's like, so you know, a lot of WWE defenders and a lot of WWE enthusiasts are saying that it's, you know, it's my fault. I must have done something wrong. I'm not opposed to that. I'm really not. I don't know what that could have been. Honestly, no one's thought about this more than me. No one's brain has been racked more than mine, right? You know, especially that first night and second night and third night, because you know I'm devastated, right? Like I'm not going to pretend I wasn't. This is what I want to do. I want to be a superstar in the world of professional wrestling. And for my whole life, my dream was WWE, and now I'm being told like, hey, even though you did your best wasn't good enough. That's a defeating thing to hear. So you try to rack your brain. What did I do? Who did I look at wrong? What did I say that was wrong? What tweet did I say that made someone angry? Any of those things could be true. I don't know. You know, I might have said something to someone that said, who does this guy think he is? Get him out of here. I don't know. The reality is I do not know. But here's the other reality is I asked for an answer because I would have accepted it. If somebody looked me in the eye and said, hey man, that ratio bullshit was nonsense and we don't think it makes you look like a WWE superstar, so we're kicking your ass out of here, I would have said, okay, that's fine. But nobody said that. Nobody told me anything. I got no explanation. I got no response. The most I ever heard was rumblings through the grapevine from a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend who maybe heard something that they tried creative and couldn't come up with anything. Okay. that feels difficult to me. That feels disappointing. That's all I can say. I will not say that I didn't deserve that. I don't know. I don't. The bottom line is I do not know. I did not get an answer, and nobody told me that this is what happened or this is why or anything like that. I was not given a chance to defend myself or anything like that. It just happened. Frankly, I wasn't even told in an official capacity. I was told through my agent. So nobody even I never even got like an official phone call from TR or anything like that. But the closest thing I got was recently when some I'm not going to disparage them because they're basically friends at this point. You know, they're people that I've worked with for a long time in talent relations. They finally got back to me about finalizing some of my departure stuff. And that was kind of the first time in any official capacity that somebody in WWE acknowledged that I'm no longer an employee there. Because it was like I needed like my passport back and stuff. I'm like, hey, like I don't work there anymore. I need my passport back. I need this. They owed me some money from Cameos. So I'm like, can I get this money from Cameo? And they're like, yeah, we'll take care of all of that. And the fact that they said, yeah, we'll take care of all that, kind of like was the first time that anybody from WWE in any capacity was like, oh yeah, you are actually 100% no longer working here.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I would like
Which by the way, they have obviously they have no legal obligation to do that. We entered a contract. I signed the contract. It had a date on it. That date was last Friday. That's it. All they owe me is money. If I take them to court, the only thing they owe me is money. They don't owe me a smile. They don't owe me a soda pop. They don't owe me an explanation. They don't owe me shit. It's just what I felt like I earned over the course of my tenure there, because I did plenty of stuff that was not in my contract that I didn't have to do, right? But I did all of those things because I wanted to be a model employee, and I felt like hopefully that would be reciprocated to me, but it was not.
It's a shame in general. Obviously, you mentioned the Cameo there because I remember you posted on social media about like you were cutting your Cameo prices in half because WWE weren't taking as much from it. I was kind of surprised at that because I felt like it was your own personal thing. You managed it was because was it the part of the contract because people have done Twitch and all that? Is that like a new thing that's going on with like maybe how superstars conduct themselves on social media?
It was almost immediately after Vince was removed from creative or whatever thing that happened. Within 2 weeks, there was like because I don't know, Vince's whole thing, I guess, was like just they're not allowed to do it. They can't do whatever thing he came up with in his mind that said that WWE owns you and you can't do anything and profit off our name or whatever. That's how he felt. Obviously, the new regime felt differently. But we had a meeting maybe 2 weeks after Vince was gone, 2 or 3 weeks after Vince was gone, where they brought out a billboard and they showed us like, here's what you can Twitch and we'll take this amount of percentage. I'm not on Twitch. So I was like, okay, I don't care. YouTube, this percentage, blah, 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 this percentage, Cameo, this percentage. And the only one I even noticed was Cameo because that's the only one I was doing at the time. Except I wasn't doing it at the time, right? I did Cameo and I was on Cameo and I did a lot of cameos because I had a good price point in NXT where people would see WWE and they'd be like, oh, I can afford $10, so they'd do mine, and I'd rally off like 15 of them a day because I was just getting so many. So that's how I did so many. But then they sent out this I don't remember if it was an official letter or a notification or if it was just a text or even if we just heard rumors, if they told us verbally. I don't remember what the situation was. I just remember one day the message was, stop doing cameos. Vince says, stop doing cameos, stop doing Twitch, stop doing this stuff, don't do it anymore. And we were like, okay, well, we won't do it. So we all deleted it. And then even when they let me get it back, I think I did it for like maybe a couple months or something, but I was like, this is way too much work for not a lot of profit, right? Because I set my price originally at like, I don't know, $40 or $50 or something. And then a few of them came in and I was like, all right, I'm getting some cameos again. And then it's like, depending on whether they buy it on their computer or on their iPhone, it's like right off the gate, Cameo takes like between 30 and 50%, it just goes. So that's for everyone. That's even right now for me. It just, the number just drops dramatically. My number right now is 49. The most I ever get is 36 or something like that. That's if someone orders it on their computer. If they do it on iPhone takes a chunk of it too. For whatever reason, they worked out a deal like that. And then you're pretty much at half already, right? That's me right now as just myself. As a WWE employee, they take that number, whatever's left for you, and WWE takes half of that because you're a WWE entity, right? If I were still T-Bar, I could have been doing the things in the mask and be like, oh, this is T-Bar, I'm doing a cameo, blah, 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 blah. And then WWE would be like, oh, that's our IP, we're taking half. But since it's just me and I'm just myself and I'm Dijak, but I'm still the intellectual property at that point of WWE. So they still want half of my cut, even though right now it's the exact same thing. But in their mind, that's their IP and they deserve half of it. And I'm sure they won some sort of legal battle that says this is fine. So again, not challenging the legality of it, just do you really need this extra money from your talent that you're already, working hand over fist to not give all those billions of dollars that you're making, right? Because the company's record profits. They love to tell us record profits, not record contracts, record profits. So they love to tell us that. So by the end of the day, when my cameo was like $50, sometimes I'd be making $12. Like I'd be netting $12 per video. And I'm like, this isn't even like, why would I, because it's like buzzing in my inbox and $12 is $12 to like say hi to someone on the phone or whatever. So but at the end of the day, I'd rather just spend that 4 minutes with my kids at that point because it's like, whatever. So I just got rid of the whole thing until recently when I knew I was getting called up, I bumped it all the way up to 100. But even when it was all the way at 100, I would get like maybe one a week or something. And sometimes that would get hacked all the way down to I'd end up netting $25. And I'm like, this is kind of lame. So, so at the end of the day, right now, it's much better without having to give that the extra half to WWE. Now I can justify it. Plus, I lowered my price point and people seem to dig that. So my inbox gets about 2 or 3 a day, which is a pretty good. To me, that's a good deal, right? It's you pay $50. I'm going to give you a really good, because I invest in those things, right? I talk for like 5 minutes if I will. If you couldn't tell, I like to talk. But I'll have a conversation on my phone about whatever they wanted me to talk about, and I'll give them a long 5-minute video. They paid $50. They get what they want. I look at my phone for 5 minutes and have a conversation. I get 36, sometimes $30 out of it. It's like that's pretty good pay for just kind of looking at my phone and saying some stuff and having a good time with someone. So that's kind of, I think it's obviously a lot more fair. But WWE wants their cut of everything, and they deserve their cut of everything. They're a that being said, we don't have to do them. So I just don't. I think it just discouraged people from doing them. I just think either a lot of people don't do cameos when they're on WWE contracts, or they just totally price themselves out and say I'm a $500 cameo, so they can justify doing it. It's like.
Fair dues indeed, Dijak. But obviously, I want to say as well, I think that shows as well that there's a lot of love and support for you. Obviously, when you put out that letter and everything, I could see companies, independent wrestlers, and wrestlers from other companies show their love and support for you. I've got a Scottish wrestler here called Hunter Sampson. He's 6'7", and he's like, my now dream is to face Dijak in Scotland, have big two massive men in a ring, and it just shows that there's that love for you, man. And obviously, Mustafa Ali, he put out a little Instagram post saying, someone run this 8-man tag match without the fucking masks. And I want to get your thoughts on 2 things. Obviously, seeing that love and support from you from fans and wrestlers, and obviously that thoughts on an 8-man tag with Mustafa Ali and maybe a few others from the Retribution days.
Yeah, we literally just talked about that on, I was just on Busted Open Radio with Tommy Dreamer and Bubba Ray Dudley and Dave LaGreca. They brought it up, they brought it up at first, like kind of tongue in cheek, but then Bully and Tommy took over and they're like, no, that's like a good, that's like a great idea to redo Retribution. Obviously we can't call it Retribution. That's WWE IP, but you know, retaliation, whatever thing you want to call it, revenge, a million synonyms for the word. So we could do any of them and they all begin with R. But yeah, just to do it again, but this time it's not retribution against the company. It's retribution for being retribution, which is kind of funny. But we thought it could be like a new age NWO because like the people would rally behind that. Anyone can get behind the concept of my job made me do something I didn't want to do. I mean, that's as bare bones as it gets, right? All of our dreams is to be a professional wrestler. None of us wanted to do that stuff. we loved wrestling. We loved being around our friends. They paid us. That's the only obligation they had to us. But everybody knows that Retribution stuff was not good creative and that our characters suffered because of it. So everybody understands that, right? Like I'm sure even people that love their job can relate to the concept of I need to do something for this job that I don't like doing. That's relatable. And if you group all of us together, I don't know where it'll happen or if it'll happen, but when it happens, people are going to dig it. I guarantee, because there's no harder working group of 4 people on this planet, right? Because we can't use Mia because she's under contract. I guess we could throw Mercedes back in there, but she wasn't really. She kind of left before we could, which no shot at her. That was, probably good foresight on her part. But yeah, there's no harder working individuals than the people that were in that group, and I think it's one of the most talented groups, both in the ring and out of the ring. And you'd never know that based on what you saw on television, right? For the people who saw Retribution, like, what is this guy talking about? He's completely T-Bar has no idea what he's talking about, right? Because at the end of the day, you consume what's given to you as a professional wrestling fan. So if all you know of me is T-Bar, then yes, of course, you think I'm the drizzling shits and I should, never put on a pair of boots ever again. I get that. I get that those people are out there and I get that they exist. Frankly, that might be the majority of people, right? Because we live in a bubble. It's Monday Night Raw and it's like, this is all we see. And in terms of Monday Night Raw, I appeared 2 times as Dominic Dijakovic. I don't even think they said my name because I was just running in as part of the NXT group and I got RKO'd by Randy Orton, or we ran in with the Tank or whatever thing that was. Other than that, the vast majority of my appearances were T-Bar and Retribution, or occasionally T-Bar without a mask on. Only twice with T-Bar without a mask on. In terms of Dijak, I never appeared on Monday Night Raw. And I assume that was by design. I'm guessing it's a completely fair guess on my part to guess that was by design. Because like, why, knowing how this turned out, why wouldn't that have been the game plan, right? So that's kind of where my head's at. But that being said, I would love to get together with those guys. Most of them are my best friends. I'm doing this on my phone and I have to ignore them talking to me as it scrolls in every 5 seconds because these are the guys, these are literally my best friends and I talk to them all day, every day. So, yeah, of course I want to get back with my best friends and have fun and do our version of what we wanted to see, that because people would be so pumped to see what we had in mind and what we wanted to do. And I would love nothing more than to see that on a big stage.
Hey, I would love to see it as well. What Mustafa Ali's cooking up in TNA as well. It's phenomenal stuff.
Yes.
And obviously as well, you tagged TNA and Tommy Dreamer in your initial letter saying you were parting ways from WWE. You also tagged Mr. TK, Tony Khan from AEW, and you mentioned you were backstage there at Forbidden Door. I want to know your thoughts, going in and seeing AEW set up and what you saw, but also what were your thoughts on the Forbidden Door show itself?
Tremendous. It was wonderful to be. So I watch a lot of the AEW pay-per-views, right? I haven't been allowed to talk about that for a long time, and I didn't want I didn't want to be like live tweeting it on Sunday because I was there and I wanted to be kind of a cool surprise with the picture and stuff. And I wanted people to think that maybe I was running in or something. You know, I was playing that whole game, right? But like normally, just like 3 months ago, I'm sitting down watching the AEW pay-per-view, talking about it with my friends. But like I mentioned, you're in that kind of weird middle ground where it's like, I'm a WWE employee. I don't know if I should be live tweeting, you know, All In or whatever. So it's like now I can, you know, and I if I'm not involved in some capacity, I probably will, you know. So that's just, that being said, I'll probably do it about WWE pay-per-views, and because these people are all my friends. I walked in backstage and I got to see Swerve for the first time forever. I got to see Tommy End for the first time in forever. I got to see all these guys. I got to meet Brody King for the first time, who we've talked to each other online and have mutual respect for each other for years. I got to see Mark Briscoe. I got to see Daniel Bryan, who I already mentioned, Nigel McGuinness, all these guys that I was friends with for such a long time, that just one by one, you don't see them anymore. It's like, whoop, he's gone. Whoop, he's gone. Oh, I don't get to see him anymore. Him. They all happen one by one. But then all of a sudden there's this paradigm shift, no pun intended. And it's like, boom, there's the hard hitting reality of, oh man, that time I left Raw and thought I was just saying goodbye to Ricochet. I was saying goodbye to everybody. And I didn't know it. I'm not going to see those guys in a professional capacity for a long time. That's disappointing. That hurts, you know? Turns out I'll probably end up seeing Ricochet a lot sooner than I thought I would. That's promising. Also, the fun surprise of, hey, I my agent arranged that a couple days before. Now I'm going to AEW. Now I get to see all my friends again. Not just my friends, but like a lot of the production staff from Ring of Honor from when I was there are the production staff in AEW. And I didn't know that because I've never been backstage. So I'm getting to see those guys for the first time in a long time. So it was just really a really good night for me professionally and just personally too, because a lot of these guys are my friends and I love to see them doing well, and I love to meet new people too.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting them to pull out a cake or something. It's like, hey, Dijak's here, everyone, get the fun out.
I don't think I'm that fun. I say friend. I'm not best. My best friends are, hopefully we'll all be, somewhere we can all get together and stuff. But I've wrestled so many people over so long, and once you wrestle someone, there's such a mutual respect there that you, by definition, become friends with one another. So that's what I mean when I say friends. Like I had a 50-minute conversation with Swerve. I talked to MJF forever. I talked to all these guys because I've wrestled these guys before, and that bonds us, right? That bonds us for life. I wrestled Tommy End in Beyond Wrestling, where I'm re-debuting tomorrow. So there's just so much tie back, and it just all circles back around. That's really fulfilling for me and my soul as a professional wrestler and a human being.
I think absolutely as well. Those connections will stay with you till the end of time because they are so special and internal. And obviously, AEW, they are coming back to the UK, and we get a pay-per-view at a reasonable time. Thank you, God. And it's going to be All In at Wembley Stadium. And I want to know, Dijak, let's say in the ether, in the possibility, what would it mean for you if you could maybe get a match at Wembley Stadium for All In, knowing where you were right at this point, a couple of days ago, gone from the WWE, and that couple of months later getting to be a part of, AEW's biggest show of the year? What would that mean to you to accomplish that?
I mean, I hate to even speculate on something like that because I know what it's like to be on the other side of that. Because I was in WWE for a long time and I was never on a main roster pay-per-view. I was certainly never on a WrestleMania, and I know what it feels like to be dedicated and working hard and killing yourself and sacrificing, and to watch the tea leaves fall as they may, and to see that another year goes by, no WrestleMania. There's another SummerSlam and you're not on it. It happened to me in NXT for a long time. It would go takeover, and I'm not on it. So I know how defeating that is and how much it hurts. So I would never in a million years speculate as someone who's not even signed to the company. I'm not even with the company. I've not even appeared with the company. The most I've ever done is tweet at Tony Khan, and I was backstage and I got to meet some people. So I would never, ever insult those people who are working their asses off for that opportunity by saying, oh, I'm going to jump in and just be there. Everyone knows that the answer to that, what the answer to that is. I'm not even going to put it out there because I know how much it hurts to be someone on the other side of that, because it happened to me. I watch people come into WWE all the time and just go, hey, I'm on WrestleMania. Hey, here we are. Oh, that was fun. It's great to get my first one under the belt. Or they win their championship, right? Oh, it's great to get my first championship. And I've been here for 7 years. I've never won a championship. And I might never win a championship. I cut a promo a few months ago that says I'm the best wrestler in WWE history that's never won a championship before, since Jake the Snake Roberts. And Jake the Snake actually just followed me on Twitter. So shout out to Jake the Snake, or Instagram maybe, I don't remember which. But yeah, I said that, and people were like, oh, this guy's full of himself. But nobody came up with a name, right? Nobody could come up with a even there were some people who were like, oh, LA Knight. Okay, LA Knight had the $1 million championship, right? Was that an official belt? I don't know. Are any of them official belts? It's all pretend. So what are we talking about now? So so to me, okay. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like that's probably a true statement. Wrestling's all subjective, so like, who knows, who cares? But like, I feel like I am the best, at least in-ring professional wrestler to ever wrestle for WWE that didn't win a championship since Jake the Snake Roberts. And I know that's a mouthful to say, and like, who cares ultimately at the end of the day? But to me, that means something, because it means like I worked my ass off no matter what. That's the bottom line. I work my ass off no matter what. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm always going to deliver what I feel is the best possible product. And that's important to me.
Hey, truly important for you and important to fans, because we love seeing you ratio people and feasting their eyes upon your work. Donovan Dijak, honestly, pleasure for me to have you here on the Soul Sessions. But before we go, one final question for you, my friend. You are coming to the UK, Rev Pro, Michael Oku, in July, and you've done stuff obviously with Blitzkrieg. You've got things coming up for you. How important was it for you after that letter in that situation to just fully hit the ground running, not stopping, not breaking, going international, going to do stuff in the States, and just putting your feet to the ground running?
Extremely important, both professionally and for my own mental health. It's been a whirlwind of a week, but it's taken my mind off of where it was, the week before that, and which was, I don't have a check coming soon. I still have to, I got to pay my mortgage. I have 2 kids at home, so all of that becomes paramount and forefront in my mind, right? Because that's the most important part of my life. Let's take wrestling out of the equation. I got a wife and 2 kids. They take center stage in my life 100% of the time. From a mental standpoint, in terms of me as a wrestler and a professional, it's also helpful there because it validates how I felt about myself, right? There's all these questions like, am I not as good as I thought I am? Am I like, is everybody online right and I suck? And like, do I just have a big head? Am I a big ego guy? Because I'm confident myself. I'm confident. I've done this enough and for long enough where I'm so confident myself that I truly believe in my soul that I am the best wrestler in the world, and I just need the platform to show it. So when I get the validation emails that say like, Rev Pro reaching out right away, Progress reaching out right away, and all these different places that I'm going to try to make work and try to get around as much as I can, that's validating for me, because it's like, okay, somebody saw what I was doing. People saw what I was doing, because it's hard to get that validation when you're in the bubble of WWE. It's hard because there's so many people that are doing so much better than you. it's like oh god, it all gets kind of like lost in the shuffle, and no one's coming over to you to be like, oh, great, which isn't to say that they didn't. Shawn Michaels would praise me a lot, and even Triple H praised me a lot, but it's good to feel it reciprocated. Let's put it that way.
Well, hey, we love you, Dijak. The fans will love you, but I don't think the wrestlers that face you in the ring, because they will have to feast your eyes when you go and stomp them across the ring, buddy. But Donovan Dijak, Thank you for coming and appearing here on the Soul Sessions. Now, folks, if you love what you heard of Dijak, you want to see his story, you want to see the summer of Dijak, you want to see what he's doing, I will include a link to Dijak's Instagram down below. You can click it, follow him, see his journey, buy yourself a cameo while you're at it, because I think we all like to get ratioed by Dijak one way or another. Fun times ahead. Well, folks, you can finish up your pints, put away your chairs, and thank you again for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions.